Hi class, this is Christoph, and I just wanted to make this brief video to give you a general overview of the course, but more importantly to articulate the key questions that we will be posing to the material for the balance of the semester. So first I want to talk about what is religion. And so our working definition of religion is that religion is an orientation in the ultimate sense. That is how one comes to terms with the ultimate significance of one's place in the world. And that definition comes from Charles Long, who was a historian of religion at the University of Chicago for many years, not too far from CTS. But more importantly, he is one of the architects of the study of Black religion. And so that's why we are kind of using his definition to ground us for our shared work together. And so in thinking about Black religion, we really are embarking on a critical discourse that focuses on the African American religious experience. And more importantly, religion also helps human beings in general to answer what we call big questions, such as what is the nature of existence? Who am I? What are we? Why am I here? What shall we do? What sense can be made of collective pain and suffering? In addition, we want to think about Black religion in a broad sense. So we want to pay close attention to the diverse expressions of religion and spirituality within. Excuse me, I am losing my words a little bit tonight. My apologies. We want to focus on the diversity of religious practice and understanding, not only within the African diaspora, but our focus will be in North America within the Black community. And we want to do that in a way that doesn't assume that Christianity is the norm. I describe this course as being situated between the Black Atlantic and the Black public sphere. Now, when I invoke the term the Black Atlantic, we really are talking about the ruptures of African life and civilizations through European contact and conquest. And the result of that contact and conquest, and we'll also be using the terms contact and exchange, right? Because even in the midst of conquest, various peoples, those peoples that come into contact with one another, are also changed. So it's not just that one person or one group, rather, is changed. But out of that rupture of the transatlantic slave trade, out of that rupture of the emergence of modernity itself, are new forms of African religions throughout the African diaspora. And this was made possible by two revolutions in the 15th and the 16th century. The first was the advancement of maritime technology, which made possible the slave trade in what we call the Atlantic Basin. The second was the economic development and deployment of the plantation system to the Atlantic Basin, which made the slave trade highly profitable. So these technologies and histories of contact and conquest are the backdrop for thinking about Black religion in America. W.E.B. Du Bois, in his book Black Reconstruction in America, describes this rupture in these terms: the most magnificent drama in the last 1,000 years of human history is the transportation of 10 million human beings out of the dark beauty of their mother continent into the newfound El Dorado of the West. They descended into hell. So part of what we'll be looking at and really contemplating and wrestling with is how is it that in the midst of hell, how is it that in the midst of this rupture, religion becomes a resource for Black people to fashion themselves anew, or for Black people to fashion an identity, to create community under such conditions. Lawrence Levine, in his book Black Culture and Black Consciousness, has this wonderful quote where he says that the Negro was not converted to God, Rather, the Negro converted God to himself, right? As a way of, again, engaging in self-fashioning. Right? So, two other kinds of points that we'll be focusing on throughout the semester. One is how religion is a resource for Black people to engage in cultural fulfillment. And by cultural fulfillment, we mean the fulfillment of two what we call basic goods. The first are basic goods known as life, safety, work, leisure, knowledge, the basic things, the basic goods that you need to sustain life. But there are also goods we call subjective goods: friendship, peace of mind, integrity of conscience, spiritual meaning, right? All of those are subjective goods. So we're looking at how religion fulfills both of those, right, in order to make life meaningful. This is also important when we're thinking about social justice and themes of liberation. Religion is a way of cultivating what we call subjective freedom, a freedom that is not given to you by the state, a freedom not given to you by society, rather what Howard Thurman calls an other than self reference point. In other words, what is a source of meaning that allows for you to even think of yourself, right, as being, how is it that religion allows you to think of yourself as someone who should demand recognition, right, as someone who should demand rights and equality and liberation? So once again, religion as a resource for cultivating subjective freedom. We're also thinking about the self and community in a very particular kind of way. So we want to see the self as dynamic. The self does not exist prior to others. The self is not pre-given. Rather, we want to assume that the self is always embedded within a larger historical context. In particular, historical context of meaning, that we are born into a society, we're born into a place and time, and we're born into a world that is already meaningful. It is saturated with values, right? And so, how is it that religion and the self and community interact to create meaning and to cultivate meaning, especially in a world in which one's humanity is already denigrated or is not recognized, right? So again, the self is what we call socially constructed in a society, which meaning, right? That religion is one way in which meaning is mediated, right, between self and others. Right? Another way of summarizing this is the title of a book, I Am Because We Are. And this is a classical text in what we call Africana philosophy. So we're kind of grounding our course in two ways. One, in the study of Black religion, right, but also Africana social philosophy, right, which is a study of self and community within the African diaspora and looking at how people of African descent have answered those existential questions. So most of our work will be done via discussion boards, in conversation, and I just want to talk a little bit about some of the themes and texts we'll be looking at. Actually, before I say that, I do want to say a word about your final project. For your final project, and I'll send out additional information on this, but for your final project, I'm going to ask that you focus on a particular religious tradition, a Black religious tradition, and really look at how they have understood personal and social transformation as well as cultural fulfillment. Okay, so again, that final project will be you examining a Black religious tradition and how have they wrestled with the themes that we're talking about in the course. So some of the books that we'll be looking at this semester: Peter Paris, The Spirituality of African Peoples, The Search for a Common Moral Discourse. This is an important text because one of the ongoing tensions and controversies and themes in the study of Black religion is how do we understand the African presence within Black life, right? So that's something that we'll be examining as well. Al Rabato is a extraordinary scholar who was a pioneer in thinking about slave religion. And so he has a wonderful book, Canaan Land, A Religious History of African Americans. And it really is one of the best succinct histories that you will find. Also from Stacey Floyd Thomas, Juan Floyd Thomas, Carol Duncan, and our Stephen Ray, Black Church Studies, an introduction. The field of Black Church Studies has really blossomed, and so they give you a good overview of some of the primary themes in that field. Also, Rosetta Ross, Witnessing and Testifying, Black Women, Religion and Civil Rights. She also gives you a profile of Black women from different religious traditions and how are they addressing similar themes within Black existence. Right? Sherman Jackson also is mining some of those same themes in his book, Islam and the Black American, looking towards the third resurrection. And Wallace Best, Passionately Human, No Less Divine, Religion and Culture in Black Chicago. One of the things that I'm excited about this semester is spending 2 weeks talking about the Great Migration. The Great Migration is a really important period because what you see happening in real time is a reconfiguration of a sacred order, right? Profound changes in Black religious life that have real ramifications for the Black community, right, in terms of religion. So just a wide diversity of religious life happening in that period. Also, Pamela Ayo Yetunde, her book, Black and Buddhist, What Buddhism Can Teach Us About Race, Resilience, Transformation, and Freedom. There is a blossoming of Black Buddhist teachers right now in America in particular, and we're looking at how it is that they are addressing perennial themes in Black existence, in particular as it relates to social justice through the resources of Buddhism. And one of the things that you'll find is a new focus on thinking about white supremacy as a form of illusion. So literally, the idea of being awake, right, awakening. We have teachers that are talking about how do you awaken from the delusion of white supremacy. And finally, Ellen Lewin, her book, Filled with the Spirit, Sexuality, Gender, Radical Inclusivity in a Black Pentecostal Church Coalition. This is a story of TFAM, the Fellowship for Affirming Ministries. Again, this is a wonderful text to think about issues of sexuality and gender and how has religion been used, again, as a resource. So here you have Black Pentecostals who are taking their own Pentecostal tradition and using it in their own way and crafting a new spirituality, a new identity, a new sense of community, right? Also, towards the end of the course, we will also look at American Religion Gone Global by Marla Frederick, and Watch This, The Ethics and Aesthetics of Black Televangelism. There is a long history of Black religion making use of media, and we really can't understand some of these new social movements, such as Neo-Pentecostalism, Word of Faith movements, without understanding this mediation of technology. There is not going to be a heavy focus on Black religion and hip-hop or Black religion and Afrofuturism. The reasons why is that one of the hard choices I had to make in crafting the syllabus is to focus on discrete communities, right? So that we can really look at that question of cultural fulfillment, right? And so I think that is one last point. Part of why we also end on thinking about Black religion and televangelism and Marla Frederick's work is that the course begins with the backdrop of the African diaspora and the transatlantic slave trade, right? And we concretize it here in America. But what you see in these new religious movements is through technology, now Black religion in America is now going global. So you can't talk about Pentecostalism in Nigeria without that mediation of technology and capital and religious leaders that are here in the U.S. So that is our general overview for the semester. Again, the major theme of the semester is not so much about what has happened to Black people, but rather how Black people have used religion to fashion our humanity. So again, I just wanted to create this video to give us a general overview of the course. Thanks so much.